YouTube, what the crap's going on? Welcome back to Rome 2, where we're going to jump into an awesome replay that was sent to me by none other than Obelix the Great Obelix the Great, with greatness. No, he's a great player in Rome 2. Ha, get it? I said it again. Oh man, I'm in full dork mode tonight. Get ready. No, he said that I would like this replay, and I do. It's a really good one, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I actually have not watched the very end. Obelix is playing as Carthage, and it looks like Smokey is playing as Rome. No doubt, most likely, the same Smokey from Smokey and the Bandit. I think that in real life, he probably even drives a, what is it, a Firebird? Or was it a Trans Am with the bird on the front of it? I don't remember. Anyway, good old Smokey and the Bandit. Isn't this kind of weird too? There's like the wolves out here. They're both well, they're running through the deer, and it's like they just ignore the deer. Like, hey, easy food, who cares? We're just gonna run off into the center of the map because we don't want to be near the Carthaginian army. No doubt the Carthaginians are wanting to hollow these wolves out and use them for a pelt. It's wolf time, people. Is this like an omen for Blade Master? Wolf of Remus, right? Isn't that what he used to go by? I think it is. Oh yeah, there we go. I'll quit spending my time on the wolves. Let's take a look at the army. Carthage has an interesting army. They're fielding 6 cavalry. It's Carthaginian cav and some Scutari cavalry, which is a nice combination. Infantry line is, I think, 4 of these Libyan peltasts, maybe just 3. A couple of Celtic warriors. There's 2 of them. The general is out here on the African war elephant, which is an interesting place to put a general. A bit risky, but also good. The main line, there are a couple of Samnite warriors, I believe. Let's take a look at the overall before I get it wrong. So here's the main infantry line. Libyans, Samnites, Libyans, more Samnites, and 1 more Libyan. Then, of course, looks like out here you've got a mix of Carthaginian and Scutari cav on each flank. And then Celtic warriors, which are up here ready to help lead the charge. Celtic warriors, now, so this is something to remember. This is Blade Balance mod, so there's a couple of things that are going to change here. One, and it slightly nerfs Rome. It's a little bit ahistorical, but at the same time, I don't mind Rome taking a slight nerfing. They only have 1 javelin volley on their infantry, and that, honestly, is kind of fair in some ways because their infantry is so good, and it makes them more susceptible to, like, chariots and elephants. Which other factions need in order to compete against Rome, but I know a lot of you would argue that the legionaries carried 2 javelins, and I would agree with you there, so I don't know, I'm kind of torn on that one. But just keep that in mind, it's one of the differences in this. And then the Celtic warriors here are not Gallic warriors. There's a difference between the two, and in the Blade Balance mod, I believe that Carthage gets Celtic warriors, and the Celtic warriors are better. These guys will dish out more damage against Hastati than the Gallic warriors. Again, it is late Libyan hoplites on each flank. These guys do not offer much by means of offense, but a pretty sturdy defensive unit with a very nice bonus versus large. Not a bad support unit. So yeah, that's the Carthaginian army. Let's take a look at the Roman army. More spears here than I would expect from Rome, but considering that Carthage can field some pretty sturdy cavalry in the Blade Balance mod, it kind of makes sense. You have these very awesome looking Triarii out here, and this is a mixed Roman army. It doesn't follow any particular era. There's some Saki Equites Extraordinari, which are very heavy shot cavalry. There's some auxiliary infantry. The main line is, I think, 4 legionaries and 2 veteran legionaries. Up front are 2 Hastati, and behind them are 2 Velites. The Velites will be very effective versus elephants if they can get the proper engagement. This auxiliary infantry is pretty cool looking too. That's a Triarii though, which is why it looks cool. Here's the Legatus. The other cavalry for Rome, I believe, are just Saki Equites, which are heavy cavalry. Making them pretty formidable against Carthaginian cavalry. So Carthaginian cavalry probably has a little bit better prolonged melee stats, whereas the Saki Equites are going to have very nice armor, health, and weight to throw around, but they are outnumbered. And the Carthaginians going for a very Hannibal-esque crescent formation here, moving to surround the Roman flanks. So very traditional method of engagement for the Carthaginians. We're going to just take a look here at how the battle unfolds. And like I said, I've watched most of this battle. I have not, however, watched the very end. And the reason I didn't watch the very end is because it's going to be good. And I want to watch it with you all. And I know you're going to enjoy it. So yeah, some of you may wonder why I haven't had as many Total War Rome 2 battles recently. Well, I've just been having so much fun in the Attila campaign, and I've been challenged for time that I've just spent my time doing the West Roman campaign in Attila, and I've been quite enjoying it. But I know that there's a lot of you who subscribe to my channel to see these types of battles, not just Rome 2, but online battles in general, so no, they're not going away permanently. In fact, here it is. And this is not only just another online battle, this is my 364th Rome 2 online battle. So there have been more Rome 2 online battles than any other video type on my entire channel. So these videos are definitely getting love and will continue to get some love. So here comes the Hastati. The Libyan infantry are going to flee. This is probably a good choice. There's going to be a charge here by what looks like Carthaginian cavalry. Very nice choice. It's going to tie down the Hastati, and then the Hastati are going to get taken from behind. Oh, I'm sure some of you will make a pun out of that. By the Celtic warriors. So yes, nice early engagement by Carthage here. This is very close to the Velites. Velites not discharging javelins here, which is excellent because the elephants are nearby and they are guarded. So very wide outflanking maneuver over here for Carthage. Almost a little too wide, but it's okay. The mainline engagement's going to take place, and so when you're trying to use elephants against Rome as Carthage, it is very, very critical that you use them before your infantry line gets wrecked, but not so soon that you get wrecked by Roman skirmishers. Personally, it's a little more expensive, but I prefer the auxiliary Syrian archers to the Velites, because when Carthage fields a lot of cavalry, sometimes the only shots you're going to get at elephants are going to be from distance. Here, his skirmishers take pot shots at this Carthaginian cavalry because they are actually mispositioned. The spears can't properly protect them, and a very nice Carthaginian cavalry charge here is going to tie down 2 units of Velites and allow the elephants a nice open avenue into the battlefield, which is going to be right here. And you can see, though, the Roman infantry is very quickly, well, in most places, doing very well versus the Carthaginian infantry, which is to be expected, and this is also pretty true to real life, except for Hannibal's veterans. The Roman infantry proved the superior, typically on open ground, which is why Hannibal refused to fight those types of fights. He usually laid some type of ambush, stratagem, or other nice plan, and that was what made him so successful, was realizing that he should not fight the Romans toe-to-toe. I always wonder what it would have been like had Hannibal gotten a professional army and been able to use a professional army kind of like Alexander did. In fact, that would be like one of my dreams, is to see a matchup of Hannibal with a professional army versus Alexander and his army. That would be incredible. The two fought very differently. Alexander kind of in his very confident fashion, you know, the way he would fight head-on with enemies. Obviously, he used some strategy, but, you know, and then Hannibal, which was just very sneaky, tricky, using every resource at his availability, trying to turn the hearts of the people against the, you know, the Roman Republic masters. Very, very clever general, and very interesting, too, because he was really the, other than his father, the only decent general, it seems like, that Carthage ever got a hold of. Even when they were led by a Spartan mercenary, they continued to get wrecked. So it seems like that was really Carthage's unfortunate role, was to be the one who gets wrecked by all the Greeks and the Romans. So they should be grateful that Hannibal never invaded their lands, or else they may have lost. They probably would have. Like, so it's, unfortunately, other than Hannibal, Carthage kind of specialized in losing things that they probably ought to win. And even with Hannibal, they specialized in losing something that they probably ought to have won, like the Second Punic War. But hey, history is what it is. So yeah, these elephants are actually now mopping up a significant portion of the Roman mainline. You can see the Roman infantry fleeing. They're probably just fleeing at this point. They probably do not have javelins, because I did see them discharge them in the mainline fight. Since the Romans have such an advantage over the Carthaginian infantry, it may have been smart to engage the Carthaginians without discharging javelins, or to keep a reserve for just such this occasion. Because you can see that otherwise the Carthaginian infantry loses pretty badly. Here's a nice charge by the very heavy shot cavalry, just doing anything they can to try and slow the elephants down. Like, kind of almost like Rohirrim style here, where they're charging in, trying to cut down the giant elephants. But it's not going to go so well for them. These elephants are not going to take a lot of damage unless it comes from missiles. Or maybe prolonged engagement with a unit like Triarii in a spear, or in a square or something. Yeah, the overall battle is actually starting to favor Rome outside of the elephants. The elephants are doing some severe wreckage. They're up to 300 kills. But in these grind-out fights, even with the good Carthaginian cavalry, their spear support, There's sturdy Roman infantry, Roman resolve. It's very hard to break the morale of some of the Roman units sometimes, and so the Carthaginians are losing the combat basically everywhere where the elephants are not. And you can see that the Carthaginians coming down to limited resources. A couple of infantry, this one coming back from routing, but these legionary cohorts and others are at severe risk. Now, this Velite did come back from routing, and it's going to get a very critical javelin volley here, so some very important damage caused. But that unit itself is now forced to run away as the elephants charge them. It did not go berserk. And then they take a javelin volley from the Libyan infantry, and now the elephants are going to wreck yet another Roman infantry unit. So at this point, if the Romans can't find some answer, they're going to have to sit around and watch the elephants kill all of their men. But the Carthaginian player at this point also needs to save all the units they can. You always want to have some support units to help elephants, even if it's just crappy infantry or something. It can be very critical to helping protect elephants. If these Velites get away alive, it's also going to be very important for the Roman. They have those Velites, and then another unit they did have that came back from routing earlier was hunted down. So these Velites are kind of like the last hope for the Romans, and they're kind of discharging javelins at long range here, which is really not going to do a lot of good. They're going to want to hang on to these javelins. That's what I think Smokey should do at least. But like engagements like this are good because he's going to easily wrap up what remains of the Carthaginian infantry. And then these Celtic warriors, although they're a better offensive unit than Triarii, Triarii are so well armored and so sturdy that they will slowly over time just kind of wear out and cut down the Celtic warriors. Triarii are a very tanky spear unit, very tanky. Do not underestimate them. So here comes a nice rear charge by the Carthaginian player into some Hastati and auxiliary infantry that were surrounding some Libyans. So very nice rear charge there. In fact, that's going to cause the Hastati to waver, and then the cavalry turn around and charge the Soki Equites. Javelins here coming in from the Velites, and this will actually run the elephants amok. So a very dangerous situation now for Obelix. But it's going to depend on what happens to these Velites and how much ammo they have. They get another toss there, but there's still no elephants down. And the Carthaginian cavalry is right next to the Velites. If they get taken, then this battle will be over. They get another javelin volley. The elephants running amok again. But the Velites, almost getting chased down by the elephants. Elephants still have not taken a loss. They've definitely taken a lot of health damage at this point, but just due to the fact that these javelin men can't seem to bring one down, we'll see what happens. They're coming back in for another volley, and they have a pretty clean shot, though this Carthaginian, yep, there it is. The Carthaginian cavalry, I don't even think it meant to get these Velites, but it did. And so this battle is probably over for the Roman at this point. A lot of the Roman troops are starting to waver and rout. Their general did die, and their numbers are starting to fade, though they are still greater than the Carthaginian cavalry, or Carthaginian numbers. This Libyan infantry here, see, a very cheap unit, but now extremely helpful because it can pin down Roman units for this type of elephant destruction. And the Roman can try and chase the elephants with the spears, and this is about all they can do. This will do a little damage where these spearmen come in here, but if the elephants stay moving, even the Triarii will get wrecked. They have a bonus versus large, but they can't really hit a moving elephant. So one elephant is down, so finally one of the monstrous beasts pulled down by the Romans. But yeah, those elephants are probably turning around for another pass here, so we'll see what happens though. Maybe they're just going to ignore the Triarii for now. That's probably a good plan. I wonder if the general has the second wind ability, because it could be very helpful. Let's see, the elephants are going to charge these Triarii. They probably ought to go into spear, or into square, not spear. Yeah, there they go. Well, defensive testudo would potentially have worked, but they got charged before they really got the effect of it. Now they have it, and it's going to boost some of their melee defense. I almost think square would have been better just from a morale standpoint, because you do get the boost morale, but you can see that without the proper bracing, and sometimes even with it, elephants will just really lay waste to infantry. So without javelin support or something to help take down the elephants, it puts you in a very, very dangerous situation. So the elephants here pretty much wrecking at will amongst the Triarii. Still only one elephant down, 690, 700 kills in climbing. 2 Roman units left, no javelins on the field. This ought to be a fairly easy finish for the Roman. This elephant just going on like its own rampage over here, killing all the poor routing Romans. Looks like this is going to be a victory for Obelix and a very epic battle between Rome and Carthage. Rome definitely holding the infantry advantage, and you can see that advantage in this fight. But Carthage able to use those support units, and that's one of the few things that Carthage has going for it in Rome 2, which is just lots of support units. And again, especially in Blade Balance mode, it almost kind of seems like that's the focus that Blade Master is giving Carthage. They're like a specialty support faction, and that's what they field as some of the better specialty support units, though they are somewhat lacking in just typical mainline cavalry and infantry capabilities, but this is where they make up for it. So we're going to see the Carthaginian elephants wrecking what's left of the Romans. No doubt Hannibal is chuckling from his grave and proud. But great battle. Appreciate Obelix sending this in. Hope you all enjoyed this one. It came down actually very, very close. Just those 2 Carthaginian units left, one of them wavering. The elephants, obviously the deciding factor in this battle, as is typically the case when you have elephants fielded in a Carthage versus Rome scenario. And this is another reason why I kind of like the Blade Balance mod. With less javelins on the Roman infantry, it means that the Romans definitely still have the decisive advantage in infantry, but it's how they use those support units to make sure that Carthage can't get them with Campanian cavalry or elephants. That kind of makes it a bit trickier for the Romans, rather than being able to just be a straightforward stomp. Now, don't get me wrong, Rome still definitely holds an advantage, even in the Blade Balance mod, but this was an interesting battle. Definitely enjoyed it, and appreciate Obelix and Smokey playing it for our enjoyment, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. HeirofCarthage, signing out for now.